Okay, this is a totally different kind of podcast episode today, and let me just start this off by saying I am someone who has never been into organized religion in any form. Even as a kid, when I would go to church with my grandpa, I was really there more to meet friends and meet other kids. I was an only child. I grew up in the middle of nowhere in Nevada, and I lived about 20 minutes outside of the town, the tiny town that I grew up in, and going to hang out with friends was always like a big ordeal. So when I would go to church, it was like, I get to see other people. Yay, I get to have fun. But even as a young kid, my brain went, something about this is weird. Something about this feels off. Something about this feels not true for me. And something that has been coming up a lot recently, and I've noticed waves of this over the years, I've noticed waves of this for decades now, when the world gets fucking weird, when the world gets crazy, people need something to turn to that makes them feel less crazy, that makes them feel supported, that makes them feel like there's reasons for everything happening, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I also want to start this off by saying I'm not saying that I think religion is bad or dumb. It's just something that, organized religion, it's something that has just never felt true to me. It's something that has always felt contrived. And the more that I dive into my own spiritual journey, my own spiritual relationships, the stronger that feeling gets. And so I've noticed for decades masses of people shifting when shit hits the fan, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's beautiful that people are finding a way to bring themselves more into our physical reality, and I think it's amazing how far out there all of the ideas of just not even religion, but just like all of the different new age conspiracy theory, whatever you want to call it, all the different ideas that are out there. I find them fascinating. And that is one component that I really want to anchor into this message today, is that I encourage you, if you are someone who's seeking truth, if you're someone who your heart is always calling you to find the deeper truth of something, whether that is related to religion or spirituality, or whether that's related to health or, anything, money, building a home. Like, if your heart is just always pulling you towards finding the truth in every single thing, you are likely already someone who's doing this. And this small differentiation might explain why, for you and for me, it makes absolutely no sense to make a 180 pivot in our lives, really at any point. And why for some people it makes the most sense. And what I find is that the people who are seekers, in the sense of we don't really accept anything as the ultimate truth unless we have personally experienced it within ourselves, within our bodies, within our lifetime, within our life experience. And what I'm noticing right now is a mass. It is like, I truly just find it hilarious how huge the numbers of people are. And maybe this is only obvious now because social media is so established and people are so bold and willing to be brave and put themselves out there and say, hey, I am pivoting my beliefs from this to this. And maybe that's why it seems like there's so many people making the shift right now from New Age to the Bible. But what I find so fascinating is that what rings as true for me in this situation at this time, and as I reflect on it, I've felt the same way in the past. What I'm noticing is people that I previously perceived as really strong leaders, people who were very bold, who were willing to be out there, who were willing to put their heart on their sleeve on social media, let themselves be seen, let themselves be heard. People that we really give a lot of authority, and previously that was only given to celebrities. When these people make a complete 180 pivot and essentially say, what I previously believed, I no longer believe, and all of my previous work is now untrue and is discredited. For me, that feels like that person had unstable inner leadership to begin with. They were seeking the New Age path that they were on because they were looking for that inner truth. They were looking for that direction to follow. They were looking for somewhere to go, to put the fears, to put the anxieties, to put the frustration, to put the challenges that happen in daily life, to give them a reason. They were looking for that through New Age, and now they've simply shifted. They've just pivoted. They've lost hope, they've lost belief in whatever path that they were previously following, and now they've shifted that to another external, the New Age path that was also external, but they've now shifted to another external source, which is the Bible. And something that we've been going so deep into this week, for the last week, I've been in Taoist, alchemical, how to even put it into words, but I've been in retreats, and we've been doing Qigong and meditations for about 9 hours a day, every day. And that's not everyone's cup of tea, and I know that. And it's something that I love, because it's not forcing a specific path. It's not saying this is the way, this is the only way, this is the only truth, and everyone else in the world must accept it and must believe it. And if they don't believe this, they're wrong. It's almost the opposite of that. It's saying, here are some ideas, here are some concepts, here's what the leader of this group, the organizer of this retreat, the instructor, the teacher, this is what his decades, his 50 plus years of being a scholar, a journalist, and someone deeply, deeply into the lineage of these practices that are many, many thousands of years old. What he's been studying, what he's discovered, he's simply sharing those and saying, these are my thoughts, these are my perspectives, you're welcome to have your own, you're welcome to challenge me, you're welcome to ask questions, you're welcome to do all of these things. And he encourages us to come up with our own beliefs. He encourages us to be even more independent. He encourages us to challenge what he's presenting as true and to create our own truth. And what's amazing is that through this process, I've been doing these practices, attending these retreats for about 6 years now. What's really become so clear to me is that there is no one outside of me who can tell me anything about myself that I don't already know, feel, trust, believe, know to be true. And yes, of course, there are so many different mentors, courses, internal practices. There are many things aside from internal practices. There are many things outside of me that can, of course, support my journey, that can give me different concepts that help me awaken and question and contemplate things. But it's really a path of contemplation, a path of, how does this feel? Does this feel true? Does it not? And what's interesting to me is that this isn't new either. The New Age thing is not new. New Age right now in 2024 is new age. Back in the day, Jesus' teachings were New Age, because they didn't come from a lineage. It came from a story that somebody wrote, and then that book was translated and translated again and translated again. And there's so many different ways that it can be misinterpreted now that people then go on to say, this is the ultimate truth. This is absolutely the way that every single thing in the world works. There's absolutely no exception. And if you disagree with me, I will wage war against you. It's absolutely nuts. But it gives people direction. It gives people a purpose. It gives people somewhere to put all of the chaotic energy that's going on in the world, that's going on in their bodies. It gives them a direction to put that into. And so, what I find really fascinating is that when we don't have really strong inner pillars of leadership, of belief, of trust, of faith, we're willing to question everything, and not always in a healthy way. We're willing to question everything at the expense of all of our previous life experience. We're willing to give up everything that we've believed for decades, for years, for however long we've been on this planet. And I don't think that's wrong. I don't think it's bad to evolve, to shift, to grow. But what I see so many people doing is completely throwing out and discrediting everything that they've previously created, built, believed, in order to fit the new box that they've put themselves in, that they're calling liberation and freedom. When really, if they went deeper inside of themselves, if they went deeper into contemplation of who they are, what they've experienced, where things might be coming from, if they explored many different paths and come back to themselves every single time, they might see that any form of externalized religion is still a form of control. It's still a form of a box. It's still a form of, these are my beliefs, this is what you should believe, this is how you should act, this is how you should conduct yourself. And this is how you maintain homeostasis within this community of other people who believe the same thing. And of course that can exist in absolutely any context. That can exist, that the only word I can come up with right now is cultish. That cultish embryo that can exist in the coaching world. That can exist, of course, in religion. That can exist in so many different places. That can exist in like sports activities. It can exist all over the place. And like I was mentioning, what I find fascinating is just how people making a hard pivot to religion are actually creating more division, because they're now, many of the big influencers who are shifting, they're now making wrong anyone in their audience who's no longer following the path that they're following. They're now making wrong everyone who's ever questioned their shift, questioned their pivot. Very few of them have been, that I've seen, and perhaps I'm just on a specific side of the internet, but very few that I've seen are actually willing to have a mature adult conversation about what happened and why they shifted without emotions and sparks escalating, without it getting really out of hand, without it getting really immature really quickly. I just wanted to bring this conversation here today because I find it really fascinating that I've always been told that I'm very mature and very wise for my age, and I can remember having so many different opposing thoughts throughout my entire life. When my parents would tell me something, my mind would instantly be like, that's not true. When teachers would tell me something, especially history, the first year that I had a history class, I remember so many moments so vividly where they would tell me something and instantly my whole body was like, no, this is not true. This is a story. This is what we are being told. This is not true. And perhaps that's part of why I've never fallen into, or like not fallen into, but I've never been attracted to anything that has really, really strong whatever whatever you call that has extremely strong, like just a really strong box that you have to fit in to be accepted within that community. I've always been the one to come into spaces like that and disrupt it. Like if it was a sports team and I came into it and it was really cultish, I would be the one to bring in other people who were completely different, who would completely shift the energy of the entire group. Even in kindergarten I was doing that. I was bringing different friend groups together. People with very different beliefs, very different upbringings, different, I was going to say different voices, but that's not the word. Different languages that they spoke. I was always bringing in that diversity and finding a way to create neutrality through that. And that's really what Taoism is all about, is finding that neutral force. You know, the yin-yang symbol. There's duality on either side. There's polarity. There's yin and there's yang, but there's actually a third force that no one talks about that's in the middle, which is neutral force. Yuan. Yin, yang, and yuan qi. And it's finding that neutral space in every area of our life that can then give birth to the dark and the light, the good and the bad, the polarity, the duality. It's the neutral space that's the most important. Like, think about the planet Earth. This is what we've been talking about all week in my retreats, is our planet literally holds billions and billions and billions of species. Plants, insects, humans. And for us humans, we're part earth and we're part heaven. And again, I'm not demonizing religion. I'm not saying religion is bad. But what I find interesting is that religion normalized this thought, this fear, that the earth is where hell is. That the earth is bad. That the earth is wrong. That there's something not good about the earth and that it should be feared. And of course, the earth has ultimate control over all of us. If the earth didn't want us here anymore, we could be gone in an instant. The earth is sentient. The earth is alive. The earth is conscious. And if she didn't want us on her planet anymore, she'd be like, peace out, bitches. Fuck off. Get off my planet. I'm done with you. But there's a purpose for all of it. There's a purpose for all of us being here. And because we're part earth and part heaven, we're able to communicate with both. And even if, a lot of the stories from the Bible, if people were telling those stories today, if people were having real accounts of those stories today, people would still think that they were crazy. People would still shame and demonize and make them bad and wrong. That's not me being overly negative or overly hopeful, it's just true. Even people in the super airy-fairy new age movements now, who are so ungrounded, who are so hard, who are so deeply trying to get back to heaven, to get back to the ethers that they came from, they're not even capable of doing anything on planet Earth because they're so ungrounded. They're so out in outer space. They deny absolutely everything that's going on here on planet Earth, and that's not supportive either. And then, of course, there's some people who are so grounded, who are so earth, that they absolutely cannot accept anything that's outside of their current beliefs. They're unwilling to be challenged. They're unwilling to see anything any differently than they have seen it. And for whatever reason, a priority of mine my entire life has been finding that neutral place, has been finding that yuanqi, has been finding, okay, religion feels polarized. No, don't want to go there. Atheism feels polarized. No, don't want to go there. I didn't know that this path existed until I met my husband. And even then, I resisted it because it felt to me like a religion. It felt like, meh. There's still beliefs. There's still stories people tell. There's these practices that you have to do. But he never once pushed it on me. He would just invite me. Hey, do you want to do this? Do you want to practice this? Do you want to try this? And every time it felt good. I felt more relaxed, more calm, rather than more fearful. And even as a kid going to church, that was how I would feel. I would go to church, have fun with my friends, but then I would feel fearful. I would feel scared of oh, if I do this, is something bad going to happen? If I think this, is something bad going to happen? If I explore my body, is something bad going to happen? And that's really my compass now. What feels more fearful for me? And what truly brings more liberation? Not liberation that other people are telling me how it should feel, that I should feel liberated by this, but true liberation. What gives me permission to be even more of me, all of me, without rules? Because at our core, I believe every person is a good human being. And then we come to Earth, shit gets polarized. Different things can affect us in different ways, whether it's obvious upbringing challenges, or if it's shit that's being sent through EMFs, through cell towers, through the air, through chemtrails, through our phones, through our technology, through the subtle messages that were being sent all of the time, whether we're aware of it or not. Man, there's so many rabbit holes I could go to from this, but the government is so aware of all of the different subtle energies of the world, of how they work. There's a reason that, like, Nikola Tesla's work has been so silenced, really. There's a reason why it's called New Age. There's a reason why it's not mainstream. There's a reason why, obviously it's getting more mainstream now, but there's a reason why, you know, when Marianne Williamson was running for president a few years ago, there's a reason why they would still refer to her as just this, like, oh, she's this crazy conspiracy theorist. And same with RFK now. It's like, oh, he's just crazy. There's a reason for that. Those who are in power are always afraid of losing it. Those who have power just want love. Those who want power always want more, and they're willing to do anything to get it. Those who have real power just want love. They just want peace. They just want that neutrality. I think that's a good place to end this one. Let's continue the conversation over on Instagram. I would love to hear how this landed for you. If there's something you disagree with, if there's something that you agree with. Again, I don't believe that religion's bad. I don't think it's bad that people are making this massive pivot. What I think is odd is when people make a 180-degree shift. And like I said, we've seen this for decades. Maybe more. There are many different spiritual leaders who've created an immense body of work over many decades, only to one day say they found Christ and no longer believe in any of the previous work that they created. Why do you think that is? Let me know on Instagram.